Hey, this is Waylon from Swiftwood Bows, and I'm going to show you how to build a self bow from start to finish. And I'm going to gear this series more towards beginners. I've already done one bow building series where I did a U recurve, and I think I got into some more advanced concepts that could be confusing or challenging for someone that's just getting started with bow making. So I want to really focus on the beginner on this, and I'm going to make there's a hickory flat bow. I've got this beautiful straight clean hickory stave here that I'm going to be using for the build, and so I'm just going to assume that you haven't made a bow before and that a lot of this is new to you. So for some of you this may be review. Hopefully you'll still get some helpful information out of this, even if you've made some bows before. But I will kind of try to cover everything as if it's new. So I guess to start off, I just want to talk a little bit about what is a self bow, kind of what goes into the process a little bit. I'm going to show you the tools that I'm going to use. So if you're making a bow for the first time, then you can know what to go out and look for if you're starting to accumulate some tools. I'm going to try to keep things pretty simple in the tool department, and I'll let you know what I'm using and what some other alternatives might be if you don't have what I have. So let's start talking about self bows a little bit here. So a self bow is basically a bow that's made out of a single piece of wood that isn't backed by something substantial like a laminated bow. Two different pieces of wood stuck together would not be considered a self bow. Most people don't consider bows that are backed with things like rawhide or sturgeon skin or something like that that has substance to it to be a self bow. But basically it's just a stick of wood turned into a bow, and that's what we're going to do. So when you're selecting your wood, I'm doing a hickory bow here, and I'm choosing hickory because it's a great bow wood. It's very tough, it's very forgiving. You can make a few mistakes with it and still get a good shooting bow. It's not too hard to come by. If you look around online and talk to reputable people that sell staves, you can pick up a hickory stave for not a whole lot of money, and so it's not as risky of an investment for your first bow. Hickory is not the only bow or bow wood that you can use. There's a whole lot of other kinds of wood out there. There's a lot of white woods that are very similar in nature to hickory, like white oak and vine maple and sugar maple, eastern hop hornbeam. Not every wood will make a bow, but there's a good number of woods out there that can work great. So if you're not sure what you have access to, feel free to write a comment or send me a message, and I'd be happy to help you find some wood to use. If you live in an area that doesn't have any bow wood and staves seem a little too expensive, you can make a bow out of a board from the hardware store if you choose the right species and you choose the right board to have perfect straight grain. I'm not going to get into board bows with this build, but just know that that's an option, and a lot of what I'm showing you in this build along could be applied to a board bow if you wanted to go that route. There's some other great board bow builds out there on YouTube too, but I'm going to focus on staves because staves are what I love. And just know that there's options out there. So what makes this a good stave? It is pipe straight and pretty much flawless on the back. There's one little knot here that's not even going to be included in the bow. The back has not really been violated. It was cleaned up with the draw knife. The person who did it did a pretty good job. I'm going to remove the rest of this cambium before I start turning it into a bow, but this is pretty much a perfect perfect hickory stave. And I really recommend that you find as clean and straight of a stave as you possibly can for your first few bows. There's no reason to make it any harder on yourself. Making a bow for your first time can be challenging enough, and so it's worth a little bit of extra money or waiting a little bit of extra time. I know from my own experience it's easy to get eager when you're first starting off with it and settle for things, but trust me, get the right piece of wood to work with. It also needs to be well seasoned. This stave was cut in 1998, I believe. It's been seasoning for a long time. It's ready to work. You can't just go out and cut a green tree and split out a stave and start working with it, or your bow is going to take massive set and be a real slow shooter. So make sure that the wood that you're getting has been seasoned properly and is in good shape and is straight and free of knots, and you'll be doing yourself a big favor by doing that. Let me show you a couple of the tools that you'll need. So first and foremost, you're going to need something to secure, you can see over here, got a bench vise here. You're going to need something to secure your work with, and there's a lot of ways you can do it. When I first started, I didn't have a bench vise, I didn't have a shave horse. All I had was a couple of clamps, and I used my kitchen counter, much to the chagrin of my wife. And it kind of sucked, but it also worked. You know, things moved around more than was ideal. It was annoying to shift things around and time consuming, but I made it work until I had a better setup. What I use, I don't have it here with me, it's in my shop, but it's called a Stave Master, made by Keenan Howard. It's a bow bench, and it's awesome. It works really great for what I do. But if you're just making your first bow, I don't recommend making a huge investment in a tool like that. You know, find a bench vise at a garage sale or a flea market, or buy some clamps and get a workbench. You know, you can even clamp it to the railing of a deck if you need to. So work with what you've got. Don't spend a ton of money until you really know this is something you want to get into. And then, let's see, I've also got measuring tape and a ruler for laying out the bow. You'll need something to rough out the bow to just get away the extra bulk of wood to get it down to the shape of a bow. You can use a hatchet. If you've got a bandsaw and you feel competent with it, that's an option as well, though a bandsaw can destroy a stave like that. So be careful with it if you're not practiced. And then the next tool that I use is a draw knife. I use that for continuing to rough out the stave and get it to the point where it's starting to flex a little bit. It's a really useful tool. Draw knives, best found on flea markets or antique stores. The old ones, as long as they're in good shape, are a lot better than ones that get made these days. The steel is just better. So take your time and look around. You can find them on eBay too. And then I use some sort of rasp, like heavy aggressive rasp. This is a farrier's rasp that's used for shoeing horses, but it works great for taking off a lot of wood all at once. Another rasp that I use is called a Shinto rasp, which is made out of hacksaw blades put together. I recommend that as well. But these aren't hard to come by. If you have a local farrier near you, you might even get some for free. Otherwise, they don't cost that much online. I also use a card scraper a lot. You'll need a metal file and a burnishing rod to put a good edge on it. But this is a really useful tool for doing the final tillering work and really controlling the wood that you're taking off. You'll need some kind of small round file, chainsaw files work, needle files, rat tail files, for putting in your string grooves. And then you'll need some sandpaper to do the finishing. I like to start with 150, go to 220, and then 320, and that gets me a nice smooth finish on the bow. And then if you're making your own string, which I really recommend, you're going to need some kind of string making material and serving material. We'll get to that later. I have videos showing how to make a Flemish loop bowstring and how to serve a string. I'll even be making a video soon about how to make a string jig, so check those out so you'll be ready when you get to that point in the process. So the next step is going to be laying out the bow, laying out the design on the back of the stave, and so we'll do that in the next video. I just wanted to do an introduction to the series and show you what I'm working with. This would be a good time if you're just getting started with your project to ask me some questions and make sure that you've got the tools that you need and a good piece of wood to work with. So look forward to the next video where I show how we're going to lay out the bow, and that will get us started. So thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you around.